Hey everyone, Tim Wright here, coming to you from the campus of Community of Grace Lutheran Church here in Peoria, Arizona. So glad to have you with us again today as we begin a brand new series called CRAZED, when every day is a Manic Monday. Now, about 100 years ago, economists were predicting, based on the advancements in technology at that time, that in the future, Americans could look forward to a 15-hour work week, and the rest of those hours would be spent in leisurely pursuits. Well, here we are 100 years later, and this is probably the reality for most of us. It says, me, trying to excel in my career, maintain a social life, drink enough, exercise, text everyone back, play video games, survive, and be happy. Well, already back in 2014, journalist Bridget Schulte noticed some concerning trends when it came to the busyness of people in the United States of America and decided to do some research. And one of the questions that she asked was, are there certain pockets in the United States of America where people are busier than other places? Are people, for example, busier in urban New York than they are in North Dakota? So she went to North Dakota and did a little research, and in her book, Overwhelmed, here's a part of what she said. You'd think, wouldn't North Dakotans enjoy their lives more? Wouldn't they have more time for what's important? But sitting around that focus group table, every single person was stressed out of their minds. One woman said that they only have leisure time, or that the only leisure time that she had was when she was awaiting her mammogram in the doctor's office. Well, University of North Dakota researcher Ann Burnett discovered something similar. She did a massive study on Christmas letters, looked at Christmas letters for over 50-year span of time, to look at trends, to look at stories, what people were talking about. And she noticed that recently, the tones of the letters have changed. No longer are people giving thanks for things in the past year or looking forward to the year ahead. They're now talking about how busy they are. And here's one example. She said, I'm not sure whether writing a Christmas letter when I'm working at the speed of light is a good idea, but given the amount of time I have to devote to any single project, it's the only choice I have. We start every day at 4:45 a.m., launch ourselves through the day at breakneck speed, only to land in a crumpled heap at 8:30 p.m., wondering how we made it through the day. A study back in 2019, just a couple years ago, said that the average American has only 30 minutes of free time a week. Now, a lot of research has been done over the last several years asking the question, why are we so busy? Why are we so stressed out of our minds? And one of the reasons for that busyness is FOMO, the fear of missing out. And here's how one journalist put it in an article in The Atlantic. Keynes predicted that the age of abundance would make all of us relax because it would be easier to get everything we need, like food, clothes, and entertainment. But maybe knowing that there are 10 great TV shows you should watch, 9 important books to read, 8 bourgeoisie skills your child hasn't mastered, 7 ways you're exercising wrong, 6 ways you haven't sufficiently taken advantage of the city, etc., fosters a kind of metastasized paradox of choice, a permu-FOMA. Knowing exactly what we're missing out on makes us feel guilty or anxious about the limits of our time and our capacity to use it effectively. But researchers have also discovered that there's something deeper at play. And Ann Burnett in her study discovered this looking at all of these Christmas letters from over 50 years worth of time. And she gave a label to it, a phrase, and researchers have backed this up now over and over again the last few years, and the phrase is this: busier than thou. You see, what researchers discovered is that we have made a transition from keeping up with the Joneses to being as busy as the Joneses. Ironically, we're no longer finding our sense of value in what we accumulate. We are now a country that finds our value and our individual worth in how busy we are. Sylvia Beleza gives us this insight. She was doing a study, and she said, we were very inspired by the idea of bragging and complaining with others about how much we work and trying to understand whether it operates as a symbol of status in the eyes of others. So in one experiment, we presented participants with a person that's posting status updates on social media that really speak to her busyness at work compared to another person whose posts speak to a more leisurely lifestyle. We wondered, what would participants make of these people? Would they think that they are wealthy? That their status is high or not? And what we found is that in the U.S., people think that the busier person must be of higher status. Now, it seems crazy to suggest that Americans who are already out of their minds busy, who are overwhelmed and stressed, would actually see busyness as a value, as a badge of honor, as something to root our worth and value in. And it's important to note when we talk about busyness that there is busyness and then there's busyness. There's the kind of busyness that comes with life, the challenges of life, or being busy because we're pouring ourselves into something we enjoy. And then there's the busyness that we're talking about now that researchers are concerned about. Being busy for the sake of being busy. Busyness today has become a way for us to justify our existence. It has become a badge of honor. And yet, what disturbs researchers the most is that it's really become a distraction. Busyness keeps us from dealing with the stuff that's really important in life. It distracts us from self-reflection. It distracts us from our doubts. It distracts us from our sense of mortality. It distracts us from that problem at home or at work. It distracts us from our obsession with why we need to compare ourselves with others on social media. Busyness has become a distraction, robbing us of the essence of life. Well, in Luke's story of Jesus, Luke's gospel in the New Testament, in Luke chapter 10, he tells a story about how Martha and Mary invited Jesus and his disciples into their home. Now, in Luke's account of Martha and Mary, there is no Lazarus, their brother, who's recorded for us in John. And so what Luke seems to be suggesting here is that Martha owns the house, that Martha is the head of the household. And this would be rather unique in that culture where usually men were over the household, and yet Martha here owns the home. It's her home. She makes the invitation. And Martha lives in a hospitality culture, and so your reputation is based on how well you serve your guests. So being the matron of the home, so to speak, the head of the household, living in a hospitality culture, she wants to make sure that her guests are well cared for. And so she heads into the kitchen to make a meal. So she's doing what she should do. She's doing what a good hostess should do. But Jesus senses that something isn't quite right with Martha. And here's how Luke picks up the story. Martha had a sister named Mary who sat at Jesus' feet and listened to what he was saying. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks. So she came to Jesus and asked, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, Martha." Get that? Marcia, Marcia, Marcia. You are worried and distracted by many things, but few things are needed. Indeed, only one. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her. Now, it's really important to understand what's going on here. Jesus is not chiding Martha for being a good hostess. He's not chiding her for making a meal. At some point, Jesus and his disciples are going to appreciate that meal. And Jesus often talked about the value of serving others. So he's not chiding Martha for being a good hostess. Jesus senses that something isn't quite right with her, that she's distracted, that her busyness is distracting her from the source of life that is sitting in her living room. Jesus is right there. Jesus is sharing stories about real life, and she's distracted. She's missing it. So Jesus isn't chiding her for her hospitality. He's making an invitation to her to slow down for a moment, to take a breath, to refocus, to move from distraction to retraction by immersing herself in the true source of life, the grace and the love that Jesus has for her. There are times when life is busy. There are times when we get caught up doing the things that life demands of us or things that we love to do. But when we become distracted from the essence of life, Jesus enters in with an invitation and invites us to slow down, to take a breath, to immerse ourselves in His love, to discover that the essence of life is found not in busyness, but in being the object of God's love and grace through Jesus. And so Jesus invites us to slow down, to regroup, to reprioritize our lives and gain some new traction by living in His love. And so to all of us who are overbusy, to all of us who may be distracted right now by the busyness of life, Jesus has an invitation. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you." In other words, follow me and learn from me. "For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Are you overstressed? Are you overly busy? Are you distracted? Then Jesus says, take a breath and live as the object of God's love. Amen.